You're listening to CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and how we do it, call toll-free 1-866-928-3310, and we'll send you out a no-obligation information kit absolutely free. 866-928-3310. The CFRN Emini Futures Cast is now on Stitcher. Listen to us on your iPhone, Android phones, BlackBerry, and WebOS phones. Stitcher is smart radio for your phone. Find it in your app store or at Stitcher.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
Are you ready, Steve? Andy? Yeah! Bert? Well, all right, fellas. Let's go!
You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/CFRN. Over 85,000 titles. Choose from mystery, romance, religion, science, technology, business, New York Times bestsellers, even children's books. You name it, Audible has it. With 85,000 titles to choose from, you're sure to find the perfect audiobook for yourself or to give as a gift, and it's absolutely free. Just point your browser to audibletrial.com/CFRN. That's audibletrial.com/CFRN. And become a part of the audiobook revolution by downloading your free audiobook today. audibletrial.com/CFRN.
Hey, trader, want to get rich quick? Well, good luck with that. If, on the other hand, you actually want to learn how to trade, the place to be is www.cfrn.net. Tune in Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern for our daily devotional, and then spend the next 3 hours learning how it's done from professional traders who actually trade for a living. That's www.cfrn.net. Every trading day from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. CFRN, a community of believers who trade for a living.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN Emini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things Emini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro, and even T-bills. Joining us today from our studios in Boston, Mr. Michael Borth. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. So glad to have you with us. All right. Oh, today's Thursday, 6th day of June, 2019. Hey, here's the deal. I've been a brave soldier for like the past week. Coming on the radio, chit-chatting, doing mentoring sessions, you know the stuff. Concierge Trade Alerts, the Logic 247. I'm just saying, I'm sick, man. Wow. Yesterday, I thought I was coming out of it. I literally started to feel better. I even remarked to my wife, pay close attention because you don't want to make the same mistake, right? I even mentioned to my wife, honey, that's the worst head cold, because I don't know what else to call it, chest and head. That's the worst I ever had. And all I can say, honey, is I'm glad it's leaving, and I'm glad I never got the whole, the nausea and the other stuff, from the lower extremities. Yeah, famous last words, right? Well, bless God. I am standing, right? So if I sound tall, it's because I'm standing. I was sitting earlier and I sounded short, but now I'm standing at my home-built standing desk. But I said all that to say this. I'm not going to stand here long, all right? I love you. I love spending time with you. But today, it's just not going to happen, all right? We're going to get through this as we do. And then I'm going to go get horizontal, as my first business mentor, George Mann, used to. He was a mountain of a man. And getting horizontal for him was laying up on his couch while I was in the other room working. So, well, somebody had to work. All right, enough of that. I got a chart up, S&P 500 Emini Futures. You might want to see it. I don't know. It's a daily chart. If so, go to our homepage at CFRN.net. On the right-hand side, click the big microphone, follow the instructions. You'll be registered in about 30 seconds, and that will give you one-click access to the show each and every day. If you find yourself away from the office, away from the desktop, not to worry. Point the closest internet-connected device towards youtube.com/CFRN/live, and there you will find us, a live, real-time simulcast during the show, brought to you by the good folks at YouTube. Thanks, YouTube. All right, here we are. Day 2 of price meeting the BBC on the daily chart. Okay. How many of you remember Miss Pac-Man? If you got to the second set of screens, I think they meet. Remember that? Okay, that's what I was thinking when I said that. Just thought you might want to know. All right, here we are. Day 2 at the BBC. How long could this draw out? Well, as long as it needs to, I suppose. Is the high probability thing still leg to the downside? Yeah, it is. What would change that? Okay, good. Great question. Glad you're not sick. We need to see a candle open and close above the BBC. No touching. No touching. Candle must open and close above the BBC. You down with that? Perfect. Until that happens, next high probability thing, I don't care how high this thing spikes, as long as it's still touching the BBC, it's nothing but a head fake until what I first said happens. A candle opens and closes above the BBC. All right? Then we start looking for a move up. Till then, looking for the move down. Down where? Well, back to challenge the low here and here, which puts us at about 28, 25-ish. But really, where we want to see be about 38%. It's more like 27, 15-ish, right? This little area right here. We would expect to find good support there. Found it once, found it twice. This time, if we get all the way to the 38, certainly we'll find good support there, catch a bounce, take us back to the BBC, and then the next leg could take us down to the 50% fib retracement. Really? Could that happen? Sure it could. From this swing high back in October, which was the all-time historic high in the markets until May 1st, we had a leg and a 62% fib retracement before we headed into the worst December since 1931. And here we are. All right, let's take a look at the numbers from around the world. Let me give you a little bit of news. I got a little bit. I'll give you that real quick. Bitcoin could inform investors worried about the United States-China trade war, according to an executive from the Bleakley Advisory Group. He talked about this on CNBC a couple days ago. On the back of stock market weaknesses over fears the trade war could escalate and the dollar weaken, Bleakley's chief investment officer drew attention to Bitcoin's recent behavior and highlighted gold as a potential alternative. A well-known gold bug, Bakhvar, the Bleakley CIO, said he did not advise buying Bitcoin itself, but that it was a useful measure of market sentiment. I've heard John say something similar to that. Bookvar says, I watch Bitcoin as a signal, as an indicator, not because I want to own it, as I'd rather own gold as an alternative currency. Bitcoin passed $9,000 for the first time in over a year last week, with various sources considering geopolitical events as a catalyst to the cryptocurrency's 2-month-long bull run, which is now taking a breather, right? Bookvar said he did not have a taste for Bitcoin investing, echoing comments by fellow gold enthusiast Peter Schiff in an interview last month. The correlation between the two assets, however, cemented Bitcoin's status as something worth watching in order to influence investment moves. Gold had rallied shortly after the Bitcoin bull run began. Bookvar says, I don't recommend Bitcoin in either direction because I don't really care for it in terms of an asset, but I do care for it as a signaling mechanism that I think was a tip-off to this bounce in gold. In January 2018, as Bitcoin was coming off its all-time highs around $20,000, Bookvar warned that the pair could lose 90% of its value, something which has so far failed to materialize after a $3,130 floor appeared in December of 2018. So there's your little bit of news. Let's go to the numbers. These are numbers from around the world. Cash markets. If you don't know what cash markets are, listen to yesterday's show. Okay? Because I'm sick. All right. Dow is up 55 points. NASDAQ is down 9. S&P 500 is up 3.5. And the Russell 2000 is down 15. The only mover and shaker in that bunch is the Russell, down over 1%. Now, often the Russell, you've heard me say this, you've heard John say it, often the Russell being a small cap index, 2,000 small cap companies. And remember yesterday when we talked about all the jobs that were lost? They were all lost in companies with 50 or fewer employees. The majority of them were lost in 50 companies with 50 or fewer employees. Okay? So, can we use the Russell as some kind of a leading indicator to the downside? Some days. Don't think you can always use it as that because it doesn't always lead up or down. But it looks a little heavy here. Okay? All right. Now, in the commodity basket today, crude oil down 15 cents, trading 51.53 last. Gold, go gold, up $8.70, trading 13.42.30 last. Silver up 9 cents, trading 14.88 last. The Asian markets at the close, the Nikkei lost 2 points, Shanghai lost 33, the Hang Seng gained 69. No movers and no shakers. And in the European markets at the close, the FTSE was up 39 points, 0.5%. The DAX was down 27, the CAC lost 13. That makes it a red day in Asia, a mixed day in the UK, and thanks to the NASDAQ and the Russell, it is a mixed day here in the US of A. Now, don't get carried away on the wings of the words of those on the financial TV channels who are barking today about how this is the greatest start to June in 20 years. That bell's for somebody. Seriously. Best start to June in 20 years. Well, they don't talk about May. I mean, look at this. This is the problem with the talking head thingamajig. For May 1st, we're putting the all-time historic high. I think they call this a rout, you know. I mean, it's just part of the rhythm of the market. It's not a big deal. It's just a thing. It happens. We expect it to happen. Goodness gracious, we talked about it all the way up to the tippy top. And then we told you exactly where we thought it would go on its way down. And so far, it has performed beautifully. We could not have choreographed it any better, just doing what the market does. And see, when you understand that, when you understand what it is the market does and how it does it, and you get in tune with that, you're no longer slave to the talking heads, to the gurus, to the vendors, to the indicator and oscillator men. The truth, my friend, will set you free. And that's what we deal in. We just deal in the truth about the markets. In fact, my compadre, my comrade at arms, Mr. Michael B., will make an appearance right here, right now, and give you some truth about what happened in the live training room today. Dang, that's pretty good for a sick guy. Wow. All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear you're feeling bad.
Yeah, you know what? If it don't kill you, it only makes you stronger. So I may have to let out the sleeves in my shirts here. I don't know. Kind of bulking up. But...
if it helps, I'll do the meeting tonight.
Oh no, I'm good. I'll be there, man. I think it's important to stay on my feet because when I lay too much, it's like my lungs fill up and then I'm like coughing and trying to get that stuff out. And I'm taking these cold pills, or what are they? Allergy pills? I don't know. I'm trying to get this junk up out of my lungs. And then I look at the back of the box. I think I'm taking a cough expectorant. I'm taking a cough suppressant. Whoops. Okay.
Oops.
So
Yep.
after the show, I'll be off to the Walgreens for a little Mucinex and try to reverse the damage done by the cough suppressant. So, yeah.
Yeah.
God
They
willing,
probably only last 4
I'll
hours.
make it. Huh?
I said they probably only last 4 hours, right?
Probably, yeah. Probably. I started out taking this stuff that was because I thought it was a sinus thing or an allergy thing. Well, actually, I thought it was an allergy thing at the beginning. So I took the generic stuff off the shelf that's same active ingredient as Claritin. A little tiny pill, and it says only take 1 pill a day. Whoa, this must be some powerful stuff. Well, I'm not even 24 hours in, and I've already taken 3. And I'm sitting there weeping over my liver going, oh, God, you probably shouldn't do that. Yeah, and it actually did make me feel a little bit better for a little while until it didn't.
Yeah, until it ran out.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to drag this up, and there we go, and it is all yours. I'll be here when you're done.
Okay, ready to go. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is the 6th day of June, 2019. If you've not taken a free trial with us, go to the homepage at CFRN.net. Right over here in the right-hand column, it says 5-day free trial, apply.cfrn.net. If you click on that, you will be brought to this page where all we ask for is your name, your email, your phone number. Hit the send button, and we'll send you everything you need to get into the live training room. Okay? You get everything you need to get into the live training room. Spreadsheet. If you're going to read the spreadsheet, you could read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. Today, as I said, is the 6th day of June, 2019. We made 5 ticks in the euro, 22 ticks in crude. We lost 8 ticks in gold. That put us at plus 171.25. Today it took 45 minutes and 3 trades to get to the goal for the day. At that point, we're up $120 a contract. And we took a total of 9 trades. A total of 9 trades. Okay. All right. Let's get into what we did or didn't do. On gold, we missed this first opportunity right here. And then we stopped out on this one. For some reason, it seems like I missed a lot of trades today. I missed that one and that one. Both of those could have been profitable trades. So all 3 of the ones that I missed there on gold could have been profitable, and I got the one stop out. That's unfortunate, but it happens. It happens from time to time. Let me just come in here and see who all is in here. Okay. On the euro, we started out with 3 break-even trades, if I remember right. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 break-even trades. Missed that one, and that one. This would have been break-even. This would have been profitable, and this would have been profitable. And then we picked up 5 ticks on this last one here. And during the break, nothing. Nothing at all during the break. Okay, on crude. Let's see here on the crude. Crude again was our best market of the day. But we missed a trade right there. That probably would have been a break even. We picked up 12 ticks on that one. We missed the follow-up, missed that one, that one, that one. All of which would likely have been profitable trades. Then we picked up 8 ticks on that, putting us at plus 20. We missed that one. Got 2 ticks there, putting us at plus 22. And we missed that one. And we had a break even right there. It looks like there was one more trade right in here that I didn't take. That could have been profitable. Then we get into the break, and there was a bounce off the BBC right there, just one time off the BBC. And then there was a shorting opportunity here. Okay, the 164 right here. Nice 164. It changed directions during the break, and there was another bounce right here off the BBC. And that was it. That was it, guys. We ended up with plus 22 on crude. Okay. We didn't do anything with the ES today. Trying to scroll right now. There it goes. Looks like I highlighted a couple of spots where I missed things. Right there was a long trade. That would have been a break even for me, I think. And this would have been a break even. And this would have been a break even. That one probably would have given a little bit of profit. We get into the break, and during the break, let's see. No, you couldn't have done anything during the break. See how choppy it was in here? There were no trade signals and all that. And that was the tune of our morning session. So I'll go over the spreadsheet one more time, tell you how to take a free trial one more time, and then we'll go back out to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona. Today is the 6th day of June, 2019. We made 5 ticks in euro, 22 ticks in crude. We lost 8 ticks in gold. That put us at plus 171 on the morning session. Today I took 45 minutes and 3 trades to get to the goal for the day. At that point, we're up $120 contract, and we took a total of 9 trades. So on the month now, we're at $860. That's over 4 days, averaging $215 per day. And on the year, we're at $12,623. That's over 99 days, averaging $127 per day. Now that is one contract, 2 hours per day. One contract, 2 hours per day. Okay. Here. If you have not taken the free trial with us and you want to take the free trial, go to the home page at CFRN.net. Over here in the right-hand column, it says apply.cfrn.net. Well, 5-day free trial, apply.cfrn.net. I mean, and you can do it from down here, or down here, or even way down here. Okay, any one of those is going to take you to the same place. It'll bring you over here, where all we ask for is your name, your email, and your phone number. Okay, you can tell us your biggest challenge if you want to. You don't have to. But it would help us tailor to the teaching. And hit the send button. Once you do that, then we'll send you all the information you need to get into the live training room for 5 luxurious free days. Okay? All right. That is that. With that, we can pass it back out to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona. Studio A overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Dwayne, if you are ready. Yeah. Yep. We're all set.
Here I be. So that worked out
Excellent.
real good.
Good.
You called me and here I am.
I like that.
Fancy that. All right.
Yes.
SP 500 E-mini daily chart. Okay. So, recap of the recap.
Today it took 45 minutes and 3 trades to get to the goal. And at that point, we're up $120 per contract.
It's good bingo.
It is.
Hey, I was watching some random video the other day on YouTube about trading. Some guy used our slogan. I was pretty mad,
What?
but I didn't say anything.
It's not
He
easy.
worded
but
it slightly different. Yeah, he worded it slightly different. He said, trading can be simple, but it's not easy. I'm like, dude, that doesn't even sound right, but he's getting too close. I had that
Yeah.
trademarked at one point, but I think the trademark goes off after a period of time. I better check on that. It was only trademarked that was... Yeah, I better shut up. All right, moving on. How y'all doing out there in trading land? Let's see. All right, so
Trading
John
land.
will be here in a moment. Is he already here?
No.
Okay, I just talked to him. He'll be here.
Okay. And there are no questions in the question box, but if somebody could type something in, then Valerie could probably put the link to Bert's meeting this afternoon in there.
Guys, if you're on the trial, or maybe you just became a partner, passport holder, or maybe you're just a hanger-on, that's okay. We love you. You should go to Bert's meeting this afternoon. If you've seen Michael in action, now you need to see Bert in action, because it'll show you the exact same thing, but from 2 slightly different viewpoints, and you'll benefit. You'll be the winner if you go. So, go. Tickets are... We still have free tickets?
Tickets are free.
Man, you can't beat that. That's awesome. Okay. 28. Oh, wait. 28, 20, is that those right? 27? Nope, not even close. Well, I mean, it's very close, but how about 84? Oh, 84, 85. A lot of work. Just do it. 85. Okay. All right. So 27, 84, 85 up to 25, 26. Now, we had yesterday, you see this candle right here, folks? It hits a weekly trading zone. Now, well, first, let me clue you in on this. Okay. So we all know Sunday night we had a gap lower open. Yeah? Okay. Down we go. And did I not present this properly? Here we go. I'll fix it. We gapped into a zone. We gapped lower and then ran into a zone. There's 2735/36. Okay. Now, if I just fix this one, which is 6465. All right. So we gap lower. We run into weekly trading zone of 35.36. It sends us right up to the zone overhead at 64.65, which sends us right back down to the zone below at 35.36. How many points is that, Michael? Is that 30 points up, 30 points down, and then 30 points back up again?
Yeah, give me the numbers again. I was looking at something else.
27.35 to 27.65.
Yep, that's 30 points.
30 points up, 30 points down, 30 points back up. Holy smokes, Batman! Yeah.
There's
Now,
a pattern.
it's the pattern. Now, here's what do we have here? We have what we like to call consolidation.
John's
Here-
in.
Okay, all right, and here we have rejection. Okay. Then we have consolidation. And then we have consolidation. Consolidation is the most likely thing to happen. And remember, only 3 things can happen at a weekly trading zone. Consolidation, rejection, which I just showed you both of. And then right here, this is what I call the slice. This is the least likely thing to happen, but it does happen. Only 3 things can happen. Price shoots through that zone like it's not even there. Then it pulls back. Because see, we approached it from below. It should be good resistance, but since we sliced through it, it pulls back to confirm that instead it's going to be good support, and we're off to the races. There you have it. The 3 things that can happen at a weekly trading zone. Only 3 things. That's powerful information. And remember, our traders had these numbers in their inbox Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. So can you. John, welcome to the show.
Hang on. Here we go.
Kind of on fire for a sick guy.
There.
Sorry, very good
cold
points
medicine.
you've raised.
Hey, John, welcome to the show. Good to have you with
Yeah,
us.
thank you. Thanks for the invite. Very good points you've raised there. If you could, I mean, there's several things I want to make comment about what you just said, and you sure nailed it with the weekly trading zones. And look, as a matter of, can you go back down to the
Sure.
consolidation?
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a matter of discipline, when you get this sort of triangular basing formation, look at how we had a failure swing. We made a marginal new low and then turned around, and that was that day, if you remember. Was that
This
Monday?
was Monday.
Right? That was Monday. And you remember we said we went for that rally into the afternoon, right? And there was
Always
a bit
be
of a pullback.
suspicious of these nominal new lows and nominal new highs, right, John?
Right. Well, you got to watch them, because, you know, another thing you got to watch is when you see a kind of a real test like that, where it reverses as strongly as it did. You know, it's something you need to kind of train yourself to do. Is, you know, when you see a formation that looks like a bottom, you know, not just a bottom, but a bottom you can, you know, get your arms around, if you like. You can recognize as being, you know, a definitive reversal. You know, generally speaking, it means there's a significant up move right ahead. And if you remember what we said, you know, that was the morning where when we started to break out to the upside, I said, you know, this looks like the beginning of a rally that's going to take us to September probably, and the power of and you know, we had a record, you know, not a record, but the biggest up move for the year, and if you can just go a bit, if you can show us the higher bit now, because that's
Sure.
important as well. So, you know, we the first thing is this: when you, I think, as a matter of, for the benefit of the people, you know, the people who are the audience, when you see this weekly trade zone that held the consolidation, when that gets breached, like for the 3rd time on the upside, I mean, you really have to go for it, you know. And when you're, thanks to Dwayne, when you're, you know, getting offered these trading zones, that's one example of the really, you know, the significance of these and the importance of them in terms of, you know, market theory and analysis. And look, you know, you're not the only guys. I mean, what Dwayne is doing here is he's kind of pointing it out in a way that's really proprietary to him. He's one of the pioneers of this analysis. But, you know, in the old days down in the pits, if the traders were in this same scenario, you know, these traders know when you start hitting a weekly high, you know, when you start to previous weekly high, it's generally a go with type of a trade, especially when it takes out 2 weeklies, bang, bang, one after the other, right?
That's right.
And here we are, we've actually taken out 3 weekly highs here in a matter of a couple of days, 3 or 4 days, which is amazing. So, you know, this is a very considerable deal going on, and we are now in what I personally call, this is my own analysis, I call this an upward running correction, right?
Okay.
And upward running corrections generally tend to spike higher. They're a continuation pattern. So in all, you know, given that we're going into Thursday, Friday, you know, ideally, the best of all worlds would be, and we don't know yet, because there is the risk of tomorrow's numbers, you know, being the employment numbers, it could potentially test, if the employment numbers are a shocker, we might get a spike down and test some of these weekly number below the previous weeklies. That could happen, and then you could have maybe a late rebound. Now the alternative to that is, if the numbers are better than expected tomorrow, we're probably going to spike a lot higher, and probably going to be heading up to 2850 or something like that. So what I'm saying is, at the moment, this is an upward running correction. You got to play it accordingly. Obviously, if the news gets better, then it's gonna go higher, maybe up to 2,900. And this whole formation is really gearing up for a near vertical up move, because there's a Mexican tariff thing may or may not happen. If that doesn't happen, I think that's probably pretty bullish for the market. Even though Trump threatened about putting more tariffs on China this morning, if that doesn't happen, that's also very bullish for the market. And remember, we're in a very, very strong seasonal pattern right now in this particular year, in the third year of an election. I mean, the third year of an election, generally speaking, is a very powerful year. It can be 50% higher sometimes in markets. So when I talk about a 30% up move into September, don't knock it, because it could happen. And and given that sort of huge buying power, just push this thing up 3 weeks of trading in a couple of days. The market's sending you a message that it's had enough of a correction. We've had this kind of 3-wave pullback off the double top that happened from last year to this year, and now we're potentially poised to come up and take out that double top and really go bananas, because you start getting up to 3,000 on the S&P. I mean, if we're going to go to 3,000, we're going to go to 3,300 almost for sure. So there's at least a 10%, there's like a 15% upside move from here, which would be phenomenal. So
based on this daily chart, John, I can't let go of the potential here for another downside leg.
Well, no, you're right. That's what I say. It kind of all depends on the next few days, the news, how it impacts. One thing that's going on today is Tesla, having been knocked down pretty badly, turned around a couple of days ago. 177 or 178 made a low. It hit 210 a short while ago. So that's something that's been holding the market down. And it looks like we might be making an island bottom here, because if Tesla gaps up tomorrow and starts going through to 230, which it very well could. When look at these previous corrections and how Tesla has shot higher. I mean, for the bulls, they're probably seeing this as a gift from heaven to be able to buy Tesla, near $200 after it was $400 not so long ago. It's certainly if everything is don't forget the electric trucks are coming out soon with Tesla. That's a very big deal for the company, and they've got some new models, and they're making changes here and there, so they're cutting costs and things. So they may, if they get another spurt. I mean, look at that last skyrocket higher. Every bottom in this stock has seen just an explosive rally. Almost
right here,
time.
The stock got cut in half. It was 280, and it dropped to 140.
Exactly.
And then turned around and went to 380.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's people who are just like, there's a woman out there who, she's intelligent. She's made a lot of money out of Tesla, and she thinks the stock's going to 4,000. I mean, really? She's not stupid. She's made more money than most people out of this company. And, maybe it's ready for its next wave. You never know. But certainly it's capable of, as you can see, we've got a kind of an island bottom there. If we were to gap up tomorrow, I think you'd probably want to take a shot at it, because it just might be. In a way, we've had a kind of a 3-wave correction in Tesla from last year's last year's highs.
And you got to understand
So-
that the investor psychology behind Tesla really has nothing to do with electric cars. It has to do with being in business with the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Well, he's an incredible guy.
He is, yeah.
I mean, what he's doing with SpaceX today is just mind-boggling, frankly. You know, the ability to, not even Russia can land a rocket back on its, base like Tesla can. And Russia's got a lot of experience in rocketry. I mean, Tesla bought SpaceX rather has been using Russian rockets in the past. So it's an unbelievable compliment that both Bezos and SpaceX can both do this. Landing rockets on their base. It's just incredible. It's a life imitating art. Because in the old days, no, it wasn't the Flintstones. Who was it? You remember how the rockets used to land vertically?
Yeah.
Back in the cartoon.
Yep.
And they're doing it for real now, which is just amazing. And it's getting better and better. They've had a few misses here and there, but it's very very impressive. And the other thing that they're making great strides in, especially Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos's project, is safety. They're making space flight safety. I mean, remember we talked about the Russians and how those people survived a rocket explosion? I mean, give me a break. I told them those are the luckiest people on the face of the earth, because to survive, 5,000 miles an hour,
right,
and come out of a capsule and actually survive you got to hand it to the Russians.
Speaking of Russia and survival, have you seen this HBO new series, Chernobyl?
No, but I hear it's a ripper. I hear it's phenomenal.
It's kind of dark and plotting, but it's certainly interesting, because I never really understood or knew what went on there. And I was living footloose and fancy free in the 80s when that happened, so I knew it was in the headlines, but I didn't pay it a lot of attention. It's and there's I think nine of those
the day
class.
It happened,
yeah, go ahead.
The grains went limit up like pretty quick.
Did they?
It didn't last very long, but they did go limit up for a few days, I think.
That class of reactor, there's still 9 of them online, providing electricity around the world to the electric grid. So it wasn't that the reactor failed; it was operator error, as they were just simply running some standard maintenance type tests. And
I think the other thing is, look, where Tesla's going to score big, SpaceX is going to score big in the future, is they're kind of at the leading edge of hypersonic transport right now, and they're gearing, as we get into the 20s, maybe by 2025, they'll have a potential, some sort of a vehicle that'll carry people from London to Sydney in a few hours, or London to Japan kind of thing. It may not be that far away. And of course, when that comes in to being, I mean, it'll be unbelievable, because I mean, I was just actually thinking, with all the jetting around that Trump's been doing lately, imagine if he had a supersonic Air Force One, or a hypersonic Air Force One, and he's just able to get anywhere in the world in a couple of hours. It would be really something. And it's going to happen probably in our lifetimes. So it's going to be, I mean, it's going to absolutely revolutionize air travel, because it just like you can't get enough speed with a computer, you can't get enough speed in travel, and to cut a 24-hour trip today from London to Sydney down to a matter of a few hours. While it's hard to contemplate today, we happily go into a kind of an aluminium tube at 500-600 miles an hour without thinking about it. If down the road, it's 5,000 to 6,000 miles per hour, it probably, there's probably not much difference, except, technology and advancement in technological advancements in the future, and obviously things that will prevent these things burning up from heat and things
Right.
like that.
Right.
And let's face it, I mean, they already achieved it, because every time they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, they're probably going about 25,000 miles an hour, and they're able to come out of it alive. So it's probably not that far away.
Speaking of computers and speed, one of our traders needs to get a new computer, and I was just doing some looking for him on Craigslist, and I came across this. Now this is it's called the Victorum. I don't know where that name came from. It's a custom built machine, $3,700, fastest gaming machine available with current technology. And for those of you that are traders, I mean, when you see gaming machine in regards to a computer, just insert the word trader there, because we have some of the same needs. This thing is incredible. It's got an i9 chip in it. Now the price is $3,700. They built this thing with a Tomahawk motherboard. It's got an Intel Core i9 9900. Now, when we looked that up the other day, how much was that chip?
Then that was, I think it was about 1,600.
So half the price of this thing.
Yeah, but remember the 9980 is the fastest, so that's not even using the fastest chip. That one.
But you know what? For most people, it's actually no. That chip's not as look. It's only 484.
Oh, that's right.
Boy,
how much is it?
The chip, right, at Amazon, 484.
Oh,
Walmart,
500.
494.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a huge difference between 9980, which is 2,000, and that one.
9980. Yeah, let's look at that one. Well, the 9980. No, that's
a 90. That's not.
9980. There we go. Yeah, $1,800. That's the chip I was thinking was in it, but it still doesn't take away from this thing. It's liquid cooled. It's got 64 gigs of RAM in it. It's got a $1,300 video card.
Can you send us the link on that when you get a chance?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Might kind of take some of the bits and pieces out of that.
Oh yeah, this guy did a real good job of outlining everything that's in it. Did you see the acquisition this morning that Google announced?
No.
$2.6 billion to buy a company called Looker, and Looker is this company right here, which is a data and analytics company. Now, most people, if you ask most people on the street, what's a data and analytics company? I don't know. But it's worth $2.6 billion.
Well, there's a lot of these companies, because they're these people that what's the word? They
visionaries.
Comb the Facebook.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. Data scraping. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
In the old days, when the planners who are planning population growth here and there. I mean, this is just a 21st century version of all this data analysis that can detect trends, unbelievable trends in what people are doing. That's why everybody wants to be tracking what you're buying and what you're where you're going and all this sort of thing. It's a huge business, and these companies like Looker are worth billions today because
I'll never forget the first time an ad started following me around the internet. You know what I'm talking about? Like you go to a website, a shoe website, and you look at a pair of red tennis shoes. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to get them today or not. And then pretty soon, every website you go to, that little red tennis shoe ad pops up. That was freaky at first, but now we've just come to accept it. That's
routine.
That's how it's done.
Yeah. Listen, before the metals run away from us today, it was kind of interesting that in spite of the effort to derail the gold rally yesterday and the silver rally, that the market it didn't close negative, it closed positive. The gold ended up about $4, still higher, and today it's up about $10, so it's actually up 14 off the pullback correction, and it's back to 1344, which is about $5 from the high of yesterday. So this gold is there's something out there that's just there's something has changed, and the dips are being bought very aggressively and with a lot of money. And I would say that, even maybe even no matter what number comes out tomorrow, the gold is probably going to end the week pretty close to 1350, I think, given the way we're going. Maybe even a 1360 or 70, depending on how this whole thing plays out. And all I can tell you is, if we get up to 1316 or 70, we're breaking out above that level that's held the market back for a year or more.
Right.
And I think we'll see a very rapid acceleration into the 1400, 1450 area, at least for starters. And it's actually happening a little bit ahead of schedule. Remember, we were looking for the middle of June for this to happen. It's happened a couple of weeks early. But I would consider that to be bullish, because anytime a move happens earlier, it's bullish. The gold stocks, after a bit of an early pullback, are now pushing higher again, and they're approaching the highs of the last couple of days. So this is also very bullish action. The dollar is actually breaking down now. It's gone down to 96.85, 80, 96.82. This probably means, I think, remember we said, we talked about it, after the European elections, there might be a little bit, one more kind of a sell-off in the currencies, and then maybe the reversal. And we're definitely getting that right now. The Swiss in particular is at 101. It's leading the way higher. This is what you would expect in a currency bull market.
And tomorrow is Theresa May's last day, right?
Right. And maybe, the pound's not tearing away to the upside just yet, but more than likely in the next few days, I think the pound deserves to get to about $1.30, maybe even, I think if it gets to $1.30, it'll probably run to about $1.33, $1.35. Once that pound, it's not leading the markets higher right now. The Swiss is, and actually the Canadian and the Aussie are doing quite well too. But the pound starts leading that. I think you want to be long the currencies, because there's more than likely going to be quite a strong upward surge in the currencies, and the dollar, frankly, right now is going to be putting in as a mother of all weekly reversals by the looks of it. Let's just take a quick gander. Hang on a sec. I think this dollar is really, it's at a sort of a make or break point here. In fact, it spiked higher this morning and got sold off pretty smartly. This is symptomatic of an emerging bear market, and each rally has been clobbered. So we're at the point of breaking down to new monthly lows here in the US dollar. Certainly new weekly lows, new monthly lows. Once it gets down to about 96.60, I think it's going to be. But as it is right now, we're kind of on a major month. We're actually on a double monthly reversal, because the high was in May, and June is lower so far. Just took out the May low. The weekly is breaking down to new lows. It's about the fourth or fifth. It's about new 6-week lows.
Here's weekly.
Yeah, and the daily. So it doesn't look very good, does it?
No, it definitely looks like it wants to go down and test 96.
Yeah, I mean, remember that top back in 2017, and how we went down to this low point. In all honesty, the projections from here are probably, look, we went from 104 to 88, so that's 16. What's that? A 16-point move. So we should go down to about 82 from here. How about that?
Sure.
82.
82.
Yeah. That would
Right. That would be right about here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. and that would put gold certainly up in the 1700 area, I would think, and silver probably in the 20s for sure, and maybe even the 30s.
Well, I would certainly enjoy that.
So you heard it here first. There ain't anybody on this planet looking for 82 on the dollar right now, I'll tell you that.
Something else that they heard first here as well, and I shared it earlier this morning. Let me share it with you just real quick. This guy, he is the Chief Investment Officer for the Bleakley Advisory Group. I don't know if I'd want my advisory group called Bleak, but I guess it's somebody's name. But anyway, on CNBC the other day, he said Bitcoin could be used not as an investment tool, but to inform investors who are worried about the United States-China trade war. He said on the back of stock market weaknesses over fears the trade war could escalate and the dollar weaken, Bleakley's chief investment officer, Peter Bukvar, drew attention to Bitcoin's recent behavior and highlighted gold as a potential alternative. A well-known gold bug, Bukvar nonetheless said he did not advise buying Bitcoin itself, but that was a useful measure of market sentiment, which echoes what you've said on here for quite a while.
Right.
He says, I watch Bitcoin as a signal, as an indicator, not because I want to own it. I'd rather own gold as an alternative currency.
Right.
And so, yeah, just echoing.
Well, look at how the surge in Bitcoin off the recent lows, right? I mean, we've gone from 3,000 to, I mean, nearly what, 9,000? Nearly 9,000.
Yeah, and now we're.
And now we, a few weeks later, the Bitcoin runs about 6 weeks ahead of the market. And all of a sudden we got a 500-point move to the upside. That 500-point move to the upside looks like the move in Bitcoin from like 4,000 to 5,000. You see that?
Yeah, what's got people worried though is this pullback here, but I don't see it as worrisome. We just came came right back to support and preparing for the next leg.
It's kind of like knocking the gold down yesterday. That's what it looks like on a shorter scale. But look. If we get to 82 on the dollar, we're going to be, 5,000 to 10,000 points higher on the Dow. No, without any doubt. I think. Yeah, we're going to be if the dollar drops. I actually think the dollar is going to go down to 77, maybe even 70, maybe even 64 in this cycle.
Wow.
So the dollar could be, by 2023, 2024. Well, we get down to 64 on the dollar. We're probably getting to 80, 85, 8,700 on the gold. So, this is a very, very big deal that's starting to happen here, and the sheer power of the gold move in the last few days is evidence that there's something pretty big going on behind the scenes. So, what impact will it lower if the dollar goes down to 82 or 70 in the 70s or 64 or even lower? It could even go down to 50. I mean, you would look. Remember, in each cycle, the dollar has got cut in half in each negative cycle, in each 7-year cycle, and we've only had about a 10-15% drop down to that first low. We rallied up because of the Trump economy, but now the best thing that could ever happen to Trump is for a weaker dollar, because the whole world is going to explode in growth. It's going to be very bullish for the U.S. The U.S. is going to become more competitive in the world because its cost of production is going to go down in global terms, and its revenues are going to go up because of revenues coming from overseas. And also its trade deficits are going to be improving because the buying power, it's going to make Chinese goods more expensive, Japanese goods, all the rest of the world's goods are going to become much more expensive, including Airbus, for example. There's one of the problems with the big air manufacturers, airplane manufacturers, is when you get these huge swings in the market, all of a sudden Airbus's planes become unaffordable and Boeing's planes become, cheap. They kind of, but when you take it all into account, and obviously their cost of production is lower, at the end of the day, it doesn't stop Boeing stock from going, maybe doubling or tripling from here, and that's what's going to happen. And so we could, in an incredible world, we could be witnessing something here, kind of an inflation, positive wage, and that's another thing. If the dollar goes down, wages will go higher, and inflation just being what it is, it's going to restore that kind of what's been causing so much problem in the last few years, where wages were not keeping up with inflation. That's changing now. So the way the wages are rising to counter inflation, and we will, even though you'll get some inflation in the economy, there will be a feeling of greater wealth among everybody. So and if you get a market surge, for 30, 40, 50% higher going into 2020, I mean, it's going to be like the late 90s, where they printed, where more millionaires were made in the late 90s than ever in history during that period, and we're probably going to go into another phase of that sort of magnitude if we get a weaker dollar. So a weaker dollar means that not the stock markets go much higher, and the gold market goes much higher, and all asset prices and grains go higher. I mean, it fixes a lot of problems. The grains go higher, the farmers are back in business, so there's really not much not to like. Now the problem with inflation is, maybe we get into the 20s, 2022, 23, 24, when the dollar cycle bottoms. Unfortunately, it's probably going to go too far, and there might be a dollar crisis, just like we've had dollar crises in the past. And that's the sort of time when gold goes, through the roof. So it's, this cycle is definitely taking developing in a new trend. It's taking a new turn here, potentially for the benefit of people who are in gold assets. So, and in stocks as well. And the Fed, and if the Fed, is behind it and getting the, defending against tariffs and whatever else might disrupt the economy, remember all the other countries are still stimulating. China is stimulating more than ever. The UK is Europe is. So the Fed getting back on the stimulus side, which is effectively what happened this week. Look at the results. We're up $800 or so in the Dow, or almost 800, I think, in the Dow. As of off the lows. So it's been a pretty big week.
Huh. Well, I think Dr. Tom is here, John. Anything else you want to cover?
No, listen, thanks very much. Hello, Dr. Tom.
Hey, how are you doing, John?
Pretty good. I'm sure you're happy with the performance of the metals this week. This is pretty epic. This is one of the fastest up moves we've had in the gold in a long time. So
you gotta love it.
Yeah, for sure. It's finally happening. So listen, have a good show and have a great afternoon.
Hey, John, thanks so much for everything. Great show, and I'll send you that link to that computer.
Good, much obliged. Bye.
Okie doke. Bye-bye. Dr. Tom, how are you today?
Much richer than I was yesterday.
Well, that's got to put some pep in your step.
I've got over 50% of my net worth in precious metals. So, yep, definitely makes me happy.
Amen. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with all that money?
Well, I thought I'd buy you Maserati or Ferrari, whichever you prefer.
No. I don't want you to frivolously throw the money away like that. What I want to do is I want you to simply put $100K into an account. I'm going to trade that account, and then 50% of it will, of course, come to me and to my charities, and then 50% of it will go to your charities. And when we're done, you can have your $100K back.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Okay. All right, I'll have my
actually. My mentor in biblical financial things was Dr. Peter Wagner, who passed away a few years ago. But he and I talked a lot about giving to missions, and we came up with a plan where, similar to what you're talking about, missionaries are real good at spending money, but they're not real good at budgeting money, right? And
right, yeah,
so whatever.
correct. Well, now
Typically,
I've known
some of them
I've
are.
known some that were incredibly adept at it, but by and large, you're correct. You are correct.
Right. So what usually happens is you give them money, they spend it, and then they come back and need more.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, if you got $100,000 that you want to give to a missionary, what you do is you put it into an account. He didn't have any particular type account in mind that makes at least 10% a year. So you throw off that $10,000 a year to the missionary, and at the end of 10 years, they've still got $100,000.
Yep.
And it's still making them $10,000 a year. And of course, if you make 20% or 30% or whatever, the whole thing works much more quickly. So that was a concept he liked.
And that's a model that will work. It just has to go into some kind of an account where you can generate, a 10% or better return.
Right.
I mean, if
so
you
how
generate
much do you
it,
make
even
a year on your trading?
Well, we won't talk about that on the radio, of course, but I can talk. I'll have my people get a meeting with your people.
Yeah, I know you're not allowed to talk about that. I'm just messing with you.
Well, you got it. So
did you get my email about today?
Well, no, I got your text. You said you had to dial in because I don't know why, but tell me why.
Well, I sent you an email earlier this week, so apparently you check your emails about as frequently as I do.
I don't check it at all. Valerie checks it.
Okay.
Yeah. But even
I guess I just have to send up smoke signals or something.
Nobody checks my personal email. It's best to text me. If I could get you on the Telegram program, we would have the symbiotic relationship. We would be in touch literally 24/7 because I live in Telegram. That's my whole new ecosystem. I got burned out on the cell phones and the email. I just live in the Telegram world now. It works for me.
Well, that's nice, but I mean, the idea of being in touch with you constantly 24 hours a day, I don't know how much that appeals to me.
That's good. Right.
I like to sleep, eat, spend time with my family, preach. So that wouldn't work for me.
You can log out whenever you've had enough of me and then log back in later.
What's that?
You can always log out when you've had enough of me and then log back in later.
Oh, I see. Okay. Anyway, what I wrote you about was, this is a real important week historically.
Because
today,
of
of course,
and the president's trip.
No.
Okay.
Well, that's important too.
Okay.
But the two anniversaries that happened this week. Today is the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Right.
And then Tuesday was the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square.
Tiananmen Square, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
For those who might be a little younger, for some of the younger folks in our audience, what happened in Tiananmen Square 30 years ago?
Well, that's just what I was about to say. I bet you there's a lot of people that have no idea what that refers to. And unfortunately, as I'll get into, in China, the younger people there, although it's one of the most important events that ever happened in their country, have no idea about it because China has completely scrubbed it from the internet. So, if it's okay, I'd like to spend a little time talking about Tiananmen Square and what happened there 30 years ago, and then switch over to D-Day. I know this is not my normal subject, but as you know, I'm a historian, more of an economic historian than anything else. But I do love American history and world history, and I do feel really strongly that we need to remember the people that have gone before us and paved the way for liberty and freedom.
And we're paving the way for somebody right now.
Not being taught in the schools.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree with you.
And even these Chinese people, the tens of thousands of people that died, they were dying for freedom and liberty, and that affects us because they have had some effect on the Chinese government. Not as much as we'd like, but they have. But when we talk about D-Day, I mean, goodness gracious, it was really touch and go. I went back and restudied everything. And there was a very good chance that the Operation Overlord wouldn't work, that it would fail. And if that had happened, then totalitarianism would have taken over the world. I mean, it's not too dramatic to say that world freedom was hanging on those several 100,000 people that participated on D-Day. So,
and we won that more by mind than might. I mean, I really, I'm not a great historian, and of course, I studied history like, the average man on the street does. But I watched part of that special on Fox the other night where they talked about Overlord. And have you seen that?
no, I didn't.
There's a whole D-Day thing, a special. Are you a member of Fox Nation?
No, I haven't done that yet. I've just been so busy.
Okay, well,
Is
I'm
it-
sure.
is it-
I'm
is it
sure if you go
worthwhile?
on oh yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, you'll find programming that you can. Basically, it gives you all of their content on demand. If you turn on Fox News, you got to watch whatever they're showing right now. But being a member of Fox Nation gives you access to all of their content that they create, that they probably ever created. Yeah, so it's worth it. I think you got a special offer right now, $1 a month or something for the first month. It's like a trial. My wife
So you
gave
can
me.
see
I'm a founding member.
what's going on live, but also the special content they create just for Fox Nation.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. They got lots of podcasts and documentaries, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Pretty cool.
So anyway, this D-Day thing where I learned about the Overlord program and all of that. I mean, it was a classic case of misdirection that allowed us to storm the beaches at Normandy and be victorious because most of the other forces were looking for us in other places. We had signaled to them that we were going to show up somewhere else when in fact we were headed to Normandy, and it worked quite well. Without that, I don't know that we would not be celebrating D-Day in the way we celebrate it today.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't be allowed to celebrate it.
Right. Wouldn't be called
Yeah,
D-Day.
it was a lot of misdirection, and it was just also, obviously by the grace of God. I mean, I don't think Hitler was praying for success of his evil mission.
No, he was shooting up meth and snorting it. Yep.
Yeah. But there were millions and millions of people praying for the success of this. Franklin D. Roosevelt is not one of my favorite people because he, excuse me, he's the one that kind of put us on the path to socialism. He took us off the gold standard. But the prayer he prayed was a 6-minute prayer on the radio to the entire United States. He sounded like an evangelical preacher, He was really seeking God's help and guidance and so on in the war. So I got to hand that to him.
Now, whose prayer was that?
Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Alexa, play Franklin D. Roosevelt's prayer before D-Day.
I couldn't find any enabled video skills that can play
Okay,
that.
never mind.
Go
All
to
right.
the Alexa app to
Alexa,
monitor
stop.
videos.
Yeah, sometimes she can do it and sometimes
Thanks
she
for
can't.
listening.
You're
We
welcome.
hope to see you back
She's so
tomorrow.
pretty.
You
for
like
another
the toy,
episode.
don't you?
Sometimes you just throw random stuff out at her and she can do it. Like, Alexa, what's 172,000 divided by 386,000 plus 12?
172,000 divided by 386,000 plus 12 is 12.4456.
Thank you.
Wow.
Anytime.
She said anytime. Yeah,
Anytime. And I still use a 30-year-old calculator.
Alexa, what's the drive time between my house and West Palm Beach?
Sorry, I don't know that.
Alexa, what's the distance from Phoenix to West Palm Beach?
From Phoenix, West Palm Beach is 2,298.8 miles away by car.
Alexa, what would be the best route to take if I'm going to drive?
Sorry, I couldn't find what you're looking for.
All right, hon. Thanks very much. Okay, back to you, Dr. Tom. It's a toy. It's pretty incredible.
That's funny.
I know. This little box just sits on my desk, filled with information. And my wife got me the show, so I actually have a screen. I can watch movies and TVs and videos and all kind of stuff, along with asking her all these great questions. So.
But remember, Alexa's also spying on you.
Oh, I
and
know, but you know what?
recording everything you say.
When I'm in the office, I keep my clothes on. I don't use my potty mouth, so, I'm not hiding anything from anybody.
Well, that's good because Alexa would tell them.
Well, she can, I guess. I don't know. I can't live in that Orwellian mindset where Big Brother's watching me. Okay, watch, I hope you turn your head when I get in the shower, but if you don't, well, there it is. God and glory. So.
Okay, well, meanwhile, back at Portsmouth, England, because that's where Normandy started.
Okay.
That's where all the landing craft, the ships took off from, and most of the aircraft, some from other bases in England. But it's exactly, 6:30 this morning on June the 6th, exactly 75 years ago. By the way, this is also my daughter's birthday. She turned 22 today. So,
happy birthday.
D-Day is the term that they use. It's actually just a common military term that talks about the day some operation is going to begin. So there's lots and lots of D-Days. The actual name, as you mentioned, of this operation was Operation Overlord, but it's just come to be known to civilians as D-Day. And that's when the Allied forces made this very dangerous crossing of the English Channel and landed in Normandy, France. But more than anything, it stands for the day when the liberation of Europe from Hitler's Nazis began. Europe was under Hitler's thumb, and Roosevelt and Churchill knew that had to change. So it was a massive operation that most consider the defining moment of World War I, or World War II, I'm sorry, the day that turned the tide of war. It was certainly the greatest amphibious military invasion in world history, and probably the greatest military operation period of all time. So planning it didn't happen overnight. President Franklin Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill knew that this invasion had to happen in order to win the war. So along with their generals, they started planning for it several years earlier. Obviously, they wish they could have done it sooner, but it took a tremendous amount of planning. And it actually was delayed several times due to weather, due to insufficient material, men as well, troops that they were expecting to move in from other theaters of the war that had to be moved in, and munitions and so on. So finally, Eisenhower just said on the 5th of June, okay, this is it, we're going, no matter what. But it was a very risky enterprise, and Hitler knew, as you were alluding to, Dwayne, that such an invasion would also be necessary to defeat him. He knew that was coming, and he planned for it. but he thought the assault wouldn't occur until the spring of 1944. And his reasoning was that it would take place in northwestern Europe. Now, we still don't know this to this day, but there's a lot of speculation that there was some spy craft going on and false information being fed to him through intelligence sources that indicated that it was going to be in northwestern Europe. And also, in the area where the attack would have come from, they actually built wooden silhouettes of airplanes, and they had blow-up tanks, big, like balloon kind of things that they blew up that were in the shape of tanks, so that when their spy planes would come over, it looked like that's where they were staging the invasion. Is that cool or what?
Yeah, no, it was, absolutely.
So, anyway, Hitler thought, well, I got time, and it's not going to happen until the spring. So he thought it would be fairly easy to repel our troops with a counterattack. So he sent most of his people to defeat the Soviet Union in the east, figuring that he'd have time to get them back. Fortunately, the secret Allied plan for the invasion of Normandy was never discovered by the Nazis. They found out about it when it was too late. Right? And you think about it, the hundreds of thousands of people that were involved in it, the discipline it took to keep that a secret. You know, they had this saying back then, loose lips sink ships. I mean, everybody's very conscious of secrecy.
Right.
But today we have people like Bradley Manning, and who I refuse to call Chelsea, and others, dirtbags, revealing secret information. I don't think that an Operation Overlord could happen today with as many people as we have in the armed services that are not loyal to the country. People that actually join in order to cause
We
harm.
got people in Congress that aren't loyal to the country.
No kidding. You know what the Socialist International is?
No.
It's an international organization, an umbrella organization that's over all of the communist and socialist parties in the world. So the Communist Party of Soviet Union and Cuba, the socialist parties of France and Italy, and so on. Guess who's also a member of the Socialist International?
Bernie?
Something called the Democrat Progressive Caucus.
Oh, did you see the Democratic convention on this past Saturday?
The California one? No.
Yeah, the California
No.
one. One of the Democrats who actually had some sense. Sorry, folks, I don't mean to offend anybody. That's just my nature. He stood up and addressed the convention and said, "You know what, guys? We really don't want a socialist America." And they almost booed him out of the place.
I saw some on
people.
Fox where
Yeah,
they booed for a solid 60 seconds.
Yeah.
They continued to boo him.
Yep. I'm at the socialistinternational.org website right now.
Yeah. Well, they've taken this down now, but I documented this years ago, and I copied it because I knew they would take it down after I published it. I published the names of all the Democrats that were members of the Democrat Progressive Caucus in the states, so that people in those states could know what their representatives were up to. And then I screen grabbed the page of the Socialist International where it showed the Democrat Progressive Caucus, United States House of Representatives Democrat Progressive Caucus, was a member of the same organization that the Communist Party of China is. If that's not a kick in the butt, I don't know what is. But, Congress, they take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. But as a former military person, still a Marine, I think that the oath that the military takes is even more serious because they know about stuff that even Congress doesn't know about. And, you know, I really believe that if we were to try to mount a massive operation like this today, that there would definitely be leaks and it would cause the deaths of tens of thousands of people. But anyway, back to Portsmouth, England. They took off at night, which is very dangerous crossing the English Channel in bad weather. And Dwight Eisenhower basically spoke to all the troops, and I believe he was honest with them. You know, the projections were that as many as 75% of the people doing the invasion could lose their lives. Well, actually, 90% of the first wave did lose their lives. But then they kept sending wave after wave after wave all night long, or all day long. And by the end of the day, there were close to 200,000 troops there, and we won. But it took a lot of very, very brave people. So he gave the order that triggered the invasion force of there's some like 7,000 landing craft ships and other vessels carrying 176,000 troops from England on the dangerous night trip to France. Also at night, they left a little later, there were 800 airplanes full of parachutists that flew to designated drop zones in Normandy. This is behind the enemy lines, okay? So they left later and they timed it perfectly so that when those troops were dropping at precisely 6:30, land invasions came. There was also another 13,000 aircraft that provided air cover and support for the mission. So it was a monstrous operation. Our main allies in this invasion were the Canadians and the British, of course. And they were fortunate. They easily overcame the opposition on the 3 beaches that they were assigned to. They were codenamed Sword, Juno, and Gold. Those were the actual names of the beaches. And part of the American force was sent to take Utah Beach, and they were fortunate too. All those 4 beaches, the resistance was fairly light and casualties were low, but the troops that were sent to what we codenamed Omaha Beach faced a much more difficult challenge. Just on that first day, we lost 2,000 soldiers there, but they achieved their objective and took control of the beach. By the end of the day, we had 150,000 Allied forces that had successfully taken over the Normandy beaches, which were vital because we needed those beachheads as a staging area for the land assault on the Nazis in Europe that was about to begin. If we hadn't taken all the beaches, again, we might not have been successful. So,
wow.
Fortunately, the Nazis were confused and disorganized.
They were high.
In addition,
they were just
well, yeah, I'm sure a lot of them were.
Well, that was a big thing. That's one of the ways Hitler drove them to do some of the. I mean, they were fierce warriors in the battlefield, and again, it's because he was pumping them full of methamphetamine. It was in just like American GIs got a pack of cigarettes in their field packs.
Yeah.
Hitler's people got meth in their field packs. Maybe they got cigarettes too. I hear that stuff makes you want to smoke. I don't know, but that's the real story. That's the truth. That's not speculation.
I didn't know that.
It's definitely it's history. And he was a big partier himself. Him and Eva up in their bunker. You know, lights down low, jams up high. Yep.
Yeah.
True story. It's in the history books.
I'll have to look that up. Unfortunately for the the Nazis, their most effective field commander, Field Marshal Rommel, was on leave because they weren't expecting anything.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Hitler,
He was out of town when the thing hit. Boy, I bet he got spanked for that.
Well, Hitler should have gotten smacked because he was asleep, and his people were so afraid of him they wouldn't wake him up. I mean,
right.
he'd been known to shoot somebody for bringing him coffee that wasn't hot enough, So they weren't going to wake him up and tell him, oh, by the way, there's this huge invasion going on. But when he did wake up, he initially believed that this was just a bluff that was designed to distract him from the attack that he still believed was coming north of the Seine River. His arrogance was unbelievable. If he thought something was true, then that's the way it was. And facts be darned,
Right.
So there were troops nearby that could have joined in the counterattack, but he refused to release them, and so they had to call reinforcements from further away that weren't busy, and that, of course, gave the Allies time to reinforce their positions. While all this is happening, the Allied aircraft were bombing Hitler's positions, taking out key roads and bridges, which forced the Nazis arriving to help out to take long detours. And at the same time, we had ships offshore shelling the German artillery positions to provide support to let the Allied troops advance. So he was getting hit, from all sides. Again, it was very successful. Within 3 months, northern France was liberated with help from the French resistance. And part of the Allied invasion force actually entered Germany during this time, where they connected with the Soviet forces. Now, this sounds strange to people today.
Who was the most famous member of the French resistance?
Who was the most famous member?
Now, this is a silly trivia question, but
Pepe Le Pew?
well, I vote for LeBeau. Do you remember? Does that ring a bell? LeBeau?
No.
Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, okay, Hogan's Heroes.
They had the one French guy in their little tight-knit group there on Hogan's Heroes, and he was part of the French resistance.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Fun things to know and tell. All right. Sorry I cut you off there. Sometimes I just can't stop myself.
No problem. It's your show. So here we are connecting up. Oh, okay. All right. Here we are connecting up with the Soviets. Now, why are we doing that? Well, you wouldn't think it today, but at that time, the Soviets were our allies. So the Germans were fighting them on one front, and they were helping us fight on another front. It was pretty amazing. Of course, at the end of the war, they showed the true colors, and they weren't much in the way of allies, but it was more, the enemy of your enemy is my friend kind of thing. Soviets were afraid of Germany, so they allied themselves with us, but they were never really our friends. So in less than a month, the Allies had 850,000 men and 150,000 vehicles. I bet you a lot of those men wished they had more vehicles because they had to march, but a lot of them were troop carriers. So they're all ready now to march across Europe to defeat the Axis powers in Europe, which were the Italians and the Germans.
I got to not only fight a war, I got to walk to get there?
Yeah.
Whoa.
With blisters on your feet. I wonder how many people listening know who the other Axis power was. I know you do.
Yeah, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm going to be coy here. Let's see if someone from the audience can answer that. Or you can just tell us.
Okay. I was waiting to see if someone from the audience did.
No.
It was Japan.
Japan?
So the Allies, there were 22 countries, most of them fairly small. The main allies were Canada, Great Britain, the United States, and then, of course, we had Australia and a lot of other smaller countries. But the Axis powers, the opposite of the Allies, were Italy, Germany, and Japan. Germany had Hitler, who was really the boss hog. Italy had Mussolini, who was also a Nazi. And then,
And a nut.
yeah, and a nut job. And then Japan had Admiral Hirohito, who was stupid enough to attack us at Pearl Harbor and force us into the World War. But it wasn't in this theater of the war. Japan never played a part in the European theater. So Hitler.com said, History.com says, heroism and bravery displayed by troops from the Allied countries on D-Day has served as an inspiration for several films, most famously The Longest Day, which was put out in 1962, and Saving Private Ryan in 1998.
Those are both great
And
movies.
interestingly, yes, they are. And Saving Private Ryan is, because of this 75th anniversary, is playing in a number of movie theaters right now across the country.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hasn't been played in probably 10 or 15 years, you know. It was also depicted in the HBO miniseries called Band of Brothers, which came out in 2001. All of those are great, you know, if you really want to understand history, and if you understand the sacrifice that this, what we called the greatest generation of Americans suffered. I mean, we had kids literally supposed to be 18 years old, some as young as 16, 17 lied and enlisted.
Right.
But very few of the people involved in this conflict were over 25 years old. I mean, they had 23-year-old platoon commanders and so on. So, you know, we had a huge part of a whole generation who kissed their wives goodbye, left and never came back, never got to see their babies that were born while they were. And you have people today that say, well, I don't believe in war. I think war is terrible. And the military's bad, and they denigrate the military the way Obama did, put them down. Those people, I'd say to them, if it wasn't for the military, you would be living in an entirely different world today.
Oh my goodness! Hey,
Nobody
speaking of that, have you seen the prime original Man in the High Castle?
No.
Oh, it shows the outcome of a war where the U.S. doesn't win, and the western half of the United States is occupied by the Japanese forces. The eastern part of the United States is occupied by German forces, and there's one little strip right down the middle that's called the neutral zone. And then the storyline develops from there. But it's really quite good. If you get a chance, take a look at that. I think everybody should see it because that's a big what if. What if we had not won the war, right? This world that we live in would certainly be a lot different.
Yeah, well, one way that we could have really been in serious trouble was on our west coast, California. The Japanese were seriously considering sending a huge invasion force there. And their intelligence told them that all Americans were cowboys and every household had guns. Well, that's true, of course, of a large part of America today, and back then, an even larger part, but it wasn't true of California at all, okay? They could have just walked right over California because there was nothing there except, you know, undermanned police forces and so on. There were very, very few troops there. There were some Coast Guard batteries and so on. But if they hadn't had the wrong impression of the United States, we could have suffered huge casualties there. So anyway, altogether, 4,414 Allied troops, 2,499 of them Americans, died on the first day of Operation Overlord. And so that's around 7,000 men. In the following days, and also people who were wounded on the first day that died later, we're probably looking at more than 10,000 troops that died as a direct result of Operation Overlord. So we owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
We certainly do.
That's why it really bothers me that on Memorial Day, everybody just treats it as a day to have barbecues and drink beer. There's very, very little respect anymore for our war dead. Now, I want to mention that all of the Allied officers and enlistment fought bravely, and they volunteered knowing that they might well die. But I want to spotlight the heroism of two groups of people. The men who climbed the famous cliffs of Normandy, as well as the paratroopers.
The ones that came in behind enemy lines under the cover of darkness. Yeah, I want. That's part of that Fox special I was telling you about. It's really good. So tell the audience.
And in a hail of machine gun fire. Okay, I mean, the air was literally filled with bullets. They were told that they only had a 25% chance of living. Because, when we think of people parachuting, we see all the pictures come to our mind as a big meadow where people do practice jumps, and
everyone's got a happy
trees.
face on. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you got plenty of room, and it's flat. These guys were jumping into rocky coastal line. They were doing it in nighttime, which no sane paratrooper does.
Right.
And with thousands and thousands of
there was no moon that
Nazis.
night. I believe, if I remember correctly, there was no moon that night, correct?
I don't know,
or
but
if there was a moon, it was covered by clouds. I'm not positive on that, but anyway, go ahead.
But can you imagine the bravery of these guys being told you've got a 1 out of 4 chance of living and still hopping on those airplanes? Fortunately, 50% of them survived. The men who climbed the cliffs didn't fare so well. I already mentioned that 90% of the first wave of the landings all died. But I want to kind of finish this off by quoting Ronald Reagan, because I could never be as eloquent as he. And this is from a speech that he gave on the 40th anniversary of D-Day, 35 years ago, also at Normandy, with some of the surviving troops actually in the audience. He said, "We're here to mark that day in history when the Allied armies joined in battle to reclaim this continent for liberty. For 4 long years, much of Europe had been under a terrible shadow. Free nations had fallen, Jews cried out in the camps, millions cried out for liberation. Europe was enslaved, and the world prayed for its rescue. Here in Normandy, the rescue began. Here the Allies stood and fought against tyranny in a giant undertaking unparalleled in human history. We stand on a lonely, windswept point on the northern shore of France. The air is soft today, but 40 years ago at this moment, the air was dense with smoke and with the screams of dying men, and the air was filled with the crack of rifle fire, machine gun fire, and the roar of cannon. At dawn, on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, listen to this, 225 Rangers, these are U.S. Army Rangers. They weren't even Marines. I mean, they were just Army guys. But that's
don't let a
Ranger.
Ranger hear you call him just an Army guy, but go ahead.
Okay. 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of the cliffs. Their mission was to undertake one of the most difficult and daring of the invasion, to climb these sheer and desolate cliffs and take out enemy guns. The Allies had been told that some of the mightiest of the guns were here, and they would be trained on the beaches to stop the Allied advance. So, again, I'm interrupting right here.
And they went anyway.
Yeah, but they had to take out those guns, or else those huge guns would just decimate all the people that were landing. So these Rangers were like, firefighters that run into a burning building.
Right.
They were the first ones there, and they had to get up there and stop those artillery in order to protect the guys who were coming after them. So back to Reagan. The Rangers looked up and saw the enemy soldiers on the edges of the cliffs, shooting down at them with machine guns and throwing grenades. And the American Rangers began to climb. They shot rope ladders over the face of these cliffs and began to pull themselves up. When one Ranger fell, another would take his place. When one rope was cut, a Ranger would grab another and begin his climb again. They climbed, shot back, and held their footing. Soon, one by one, the Rangers pulled themselves over the top, and in seizing the firm land at the top of the cliffs, they began to seize back the continent of Europe. Listen to this. 225 Rangers came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms.
Wow.
And he was standing in front of a memorial that symbolized the daggers. The Rangers took their daggers, their bayonets, and thrust them into the top of the cliffs so that they could tie ropes on them and other men could come up. And of course, he mentioned before me are the men who put them there, because they had a lot of them. I was watching the ceremonies yesterday and today, and there are fewer and fewer, obviously. Even if they're 18 years old, 75 years later, they're in their 90s. There was one man at the ceremony that was honored by President Trump, who is 98 years old, and they had to help him stand up, but he was there. So,
wow.
I mean, we owe so much to these people.
No, we really do. The freedom we enjoy to listen to this radio program or not listen to this radio program, to get up and walk out of the room or stay in the room. I mean, just the simple life functions that we take so for granted. I mean, throughout history, so many people have been imprisoned, from the Jewish people back in the days of Pharaoh, right on up until today. I mean, those of us who grew up in America as Americans, we have known unbridled freedoms and liberties that most other people over the course of history, have not known or sampled occasionally.
Now, when we first started off today, I mentioned Tiananmen Square. If we have time, I'd like to just briefly comment on what happened back then and what's happening today regarding Tiananmen Square. Because, as I said, even though, we're not Chinese, they were fighting for freedom and liberty. And whenever anyone does that anywhere in the world, it affects us all.
That's right.
If a lot of people just lay back and say, well, they're bigger than us, they're meaner than us, they're better than us, we might as well just knuckle under.
Well, you're right, because the reason Hitler almost dominated the world is because for too long, good people did nothing.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Thank God we came to our senses before it was too late.
But what happened in China 30 years ago, last Tuesday, I believe that they successfully created so much fear in the minds of their people to where nothing like this has ever happened since then. It was a brutal massacre by the Communist Chinese of innocent protesters. Tiananmen Square is a huge, huge area. It's like the center of
Have you been to China?
All the government operations and buildings that surround it. And so there are over 1 million Chinese students and workers that occupied it. I mean, they just came and occupied it for weeks. And finally, the communists got tired of it, and they said, go in and get them out by whatever means. This is embarrassing to us. It was actually 6 weeks of protest, but the occupation, where they had over 1 million people, there was about 2 weeks. And it was, tens of thousands of people dead, injured, and arrested. Very few of the families of the people murdered ever received their bodies back because they didn't want the numbers to be known. And tens of thousands of others.
You know what Tiananmen means? This is crazy.
No.
Gate of heavenly peace.
Oh, good Lord in heaven. Gate of heavenly peace.
And these people that were in the square, now this is history that I really didn't know. I'm not really a student of history like I should be, I suppose. Ousted General Secretary of the Communist Party, Hu Yaobang, died at age 73 on April 15th, 1989. The next day, thousands of students gathered in Tiananmen Square to mourn him. Hu had become a symbol of reform for the student movement. A week later, thousands more marched to Tiananmen Square, the start of an occupation that would end in a tragic showdown. Wow.
And what was his name?
His name was H.U., first name, and last name Y-A-O-B-A-N-G.
Oh, I have to add that to my article. So anyway, tens of thousands of people disappeared, and they've never been heard from again. And they're almost certainly all dead. To this day, China has not apologized or even acknowledged the massacre they perpetrated to stop peaceful citizens from demonstrating for democracy. Their only statement in all these 30 years has been that 200 soldiers and militants, that's what they call these protesters, were killed and 7,000 injured during violent protests against the revolution. The only violence was perpetrated by the government.
Yeah,
PBS.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
PBS says that there's actually at least 2,000 killed at the square and tens of thousands of others arrested and almost certainly executed. Go ahead with what you're going to say.
Well, on April 15th, that's when the leader Yao Bang died. And then April 18th of 1989 is when thousands of mourning students marched through the Capitol to Tiananmen Square, calling for a more democratic government. Then on May 13th, same year, more than 100 students began a hunger strike in Tiananmen Square. The number increases to several thousand over the next few days. By May 19th, a rally at Tiananmen Square draws an estimated 1.2 million people. Now, the General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party pleaded for an end to the demonstrations. And then Premier Li Peng on May 19th imposes martial law. June 1st, China halts live American news telecasts in Beijing, including CNN. Also, reporters are prohibited from photographing or videotaping any of the demonstrations or the Chinese troops. The next day, June 2nd, a reported 100,000 people attend a concert in Tiananmen Square. June 4th, at about 1 a.m. in the morning, Chinese troops reach Tiananmen Square. Throughout the day, Chinese troops fire on civilians and students, ending the demonstrations. An official death toll has never been released by China.
Right.
And then
the only thing they've said is that 200 people were killed and 7,000 injured, but that's hugely underestimating the truth. When you've got troops firing with machine guns into a crowd of 1 million people.
And weren't they running over people with these tanks?
And personnel carriers driving over people. Yeah, I mean, there's more than that killed. So the world was horrified, and nations around the world were protesting. Even Mikhail Gorbachev, who was the head of the Soviet Union and China's ideological partner, admonished China, and our government didn't really do much until they were really pushed by the American people. And finally, they put economic sanctions on the communist dictatorship to punish them. But here's the worst part of it. I mean, you think tens of thousands of people getting killed would be the worst thing. But even worse is tens of thousands of people being killed and erased from history. The 1.4 billion people who live in China today, which is 20% of the population of the world, can't find a scrap of information about one of the most important events that ever happened.
Yeah.
When they search on the internet. I saw a picture, and I actually put it in an article I wrote, of a Chinese history book. The year 1989 is not there. It's just gone. If you try to post something on the internet that has 1989 or June 4th or Tiananmen or anything, it's instantly deleted. Okay? Chinese who search for Tiananmen only see sunny pictures of the city. Any reference to the bloody massacre is censored. With the help of Google, Apple, and Microsoft, they're actually conspiring with the Chinese to do this censorship. So apparently profits and having good relations with China are more important to these tech giants than human rights. And it's not much better here than Europe. The liberal news media has either ignored Tiananmen totally or made passing references. None of them, except Fox News, has reported on the true horror of the massacre in any meaningful way. So apparently if you're a liberal or a socialist or a Democrat, it's not considered politically correct to criticize a nation that's on the same end of the political spectrum as you are. Now, Dwayne, you know the picture of Tank Man, as they call it?
I was just showing it on the screen to the audience. I sure was, yep.
Okay. Can you believe that Facebook apologized to the Chinese government for allowing that picture to be posted on Facebook?
No, I did not know that.
Because they consider that it's not allowed anywhere in China. You can't find that photo anyplace, and if you've got it, you can be arrested. Now, fortunately, this young man who courageously stood in front of the tanks, trying to keep them from going to Tiananmen Square, was not crushed by the tanks, most likely because there were cameras present. But he was taken into custody, and he's never been heard from again. Others were not so fortunate. Hundreds of people were mowed down by tanks and armored personnel carriers in the square, and of course, the live gunfire killed thousands and thousands.
Here's a news.
So,
yeah, I'm sorry. Keep going. Keep going.
You know, I write a lot. You know, your listeners are familiar with conservativetruth.org. Mm-hmm. I write every week on it. Have done for the last 20 years. It's the oldest conservative website that's continuously published on the internet. And people sometimes write to me and say, "Why are you so negative about China?" This is why. It's because I study history. Oh, but, you know, they say, this happened 30 years ago. China has changed. Yes, it's true, it happened 30 years ago. But no, China has not changed. Publicly, they're a little more moderate. But here's my reasoning. China hasn't changed because, first of all, they've never admitted what they did.
Right.
They can't be forgiven if they don't ask for forgiveness.
Amen. Preach it.
Germany committed atrocities worse than this, but they've confessed their sins, and they've taken steps to make sure nothing like the Holocaust could ever happen again. And they've been readmitted to the community of civilized nations. China is not part of that community. Second, China would do it again. Faced with the same level of defiance from their people, they would bring out the tanks again. 30 years ago, they sent 250,000 armed troops against unarmed peaceful protesters. Does anybody seriously doubt that they would do it again if they were provoked? They're still brutal communist totalitarians who have no regard for life or liberty. And finally, China is still actively aggressive on the world stage. You know, about those islands they built.
Muslims imprisoned right now.
1 million.
1 million. That's the figure I got. 1 million Muslims are in internment camps, and maybe someone in the audience can educate me, but I don't know if it's for just simply being Muslim. Is that the reason? I think.
Well, there is another religious group. I think they're sort of offshoot of Hindus. Cannot think of their name right now, but they're heavily persecuted by China.
All right, here's
but
a recent
here's
article.
my third point.
No, go ahead. You finish your point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost done here. China is still actively aggressive on the world stage. Remember those islands they built in international waters?
Right.
Not in their waters, international waters.
Off Taiwan?
Yeah. They promised they would never be militarized. As soon as they were done, they put anti-aircraft guns and missiles on them.
Weaponized, yep.
And any ship that comes close, they harass it. So we've actually had to send ships in there close to it to let them know, hey, you're not going to take over the South China Sea. They're working overtime to produce nuclear missiles that can reach the United States, and some think that they've already got that capability. So while our so-called diplomats and politicians smile and call China our valuable trading partners, China steals our technology and conducts economic warfare against the United States. So I don't care what anyone says. China is our enemy.
Yeah, no, they
They're
are
not our partner.
Yeah.
Even though we buy their cheap garbage at Walmart, you know, I call Walmart China's outlet mall.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not as bad as it used to
if
be.
China sees an opportunity, they will destroy us.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's
No
why
doubt.
I am negative about China.
This article right here, Dr. Tom, about China, it's a Newsweek article. It's actually a Reuters article published just last month. The United States accuses China of putting well more than 1 million minority Muslims in concentration camps in one of the strongest U.S. condemnations. And then it goes on to say, former detainees have described to Reuters being tortured during interrogation at the camps, living in crowded cells, and being subjected to a brutal daily regimen of party indoctrination that drove some people to suicide. Some of the sprawling facilities are ringed with razor wire and watchtowers. The Chinese Communist Party is using the security forces for mass imprisonment of Chinese Muslims in concentration camps. And a Pentagon official estimates that the number of detained Muslims could be closer to 3 million and not just 1 million. Shriver, the Pentagon guy and Assistant Secretary of Defense, defended his use of a term normally associated with Nazi Germany as appropriate under the circumstances. When asked by a reporter why he used the term, Shriver said that it was justified given what we understand to be the magnitude of the detention. At least 1 million, but likely closer to 3 million citizens out of a population of about 10 million. So a very significant portion of the population, given what's happening there, what the goals are of the Chinese government, and their own public comments, make that a very, I think, appropriate description. Now, what term was it that he used? Oh, concentration camps. Okay.
Well, that's absolutely what they were.
The Chinese embassy...
You know how stockbrokers and financial guys will, you know, do free lunches and have people come and they pitch them their mutual funds or various different kind of products. You know, I used to go to those occasions just to see what other people were doing when I was still in the business.
I'm familiar with the with all the vendors, yeah.
I went to one of those, it's got to be 10 years ago, and the guy was recommending some mutual funds that they had that were investing in China because China is the up-and-coming economy,
right,
and so on. And frankly, if I had invested in those funds,
You'd have made money.
I would have millions of dollars
Yes, yeah,
right
the rates
now.
were big for a while.
Because he's right. They did make tremendous money, but I raised my hand, and he said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "I would never invest in anything that would benefit China." And he says, "Well, this is a good financial investment." I said, "I don't care how much money I might make off of it. Most of the goods that they ship here, I don't know if you do this, but there's two divisions of the Red Chinese Army. One is actually what we would call Army. The other is the one that's the economic arm. They run the prisons and the slave labor factories. And most of the people that produce the goods that we consume here are people who are political prisoners. And they work, like 18 hours a day under terrible conditions producing this stuff, which is why China can sell it so cheap. So that just incenses me. So I remember one day I needed a thumb drive. And again, this is about 10 years ago. I went to CompUSA. Everything they had there was made in China. So I went to Best Buy, everything made in China. I went to every place in Palm Beach County that sold electronics, and I could not find a jump drive. I mean, we're talking about a $10 jump drive.
Right.
And I spent probably $20 in gas and a half a day trying to find an alternative because I did not want to buy a Chinese thumb drive. You may think I'm crazy. That's okay. A lot of people
I know
do.
people that won't shop at Walmart,
People do what?
I said, I know people who won't shop at Walmart.
Yeah.
You didn't want to buy a Chinese jump drive. I get it.
Yeah. And it's a shame, too, because Sam Walton was a great man. He was a good man. And I think he would be as unhappy with what's happened with Walmart and Sam's today, particularly Walmart, as Walt Disney would be with what's happened to his amusement parks.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Walt was a little on the freaky side himself, was he not?
He wasn't a Christian. He was a nice guy. He was a family guy. But to have homosexuals parading down the main street of Disneyland, dressed in nothing but women's
But if I'm not
lingerie.
mistaken, Walt also tripped the Light Fantastic.
Oh no! Please don't tell me that.
Well, I'm just, I don't know for a fact. I mean, it's on the internet. Sometimes I believe it, sometimes I don't. I don't know. Honestly, I never met the man.
Well,
Just
I was able to, because I used to own some travel agencies. I was able to get a tour behind the scenes of Disney, and I happened to sit close to the driver of the van, and she was honest. And I asked her, I said, this Gay Pride Day, they have every year at Disney, to me, I just don't understand that whole thing. Can you imagine having a heterosexual Pride Day? Would you get out in the streets and parade around and say, I'm heterosexual, yay for me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why they feel like they have to demonstrate pride in their perversion. But anyway, regardless, it happens every year at Disney. And Disney doesn't warn people. They know what's coming. They don't warn people so that they can not take their kids there to see this filth, And if people see them coming down the streets and French kissing each other and all that kind of stuff, they won't refund their tickets if they leave. But Disney publicly says, we don't know anything about it. We have nothing to do with it. They just decide to come here and celebrate once a year, and everybody's welcome in Disney World. Well, this van driver told me that she had personally seen a memo that came out from Eisner, who was the head of Disney at that time, requiring every single department at Disney to send a representative to a big meeting they were having coordinating Gay Day. So Disney lies through the teeth. They know everything about it. They help organize it. So anyway, I would like to think that Disney would turn over his grave to see it, but
there's a lot of accusations, some proven, some unproven. A fact is he smoked cigarettes and he did die of lung cancer. So I don't know if anybody can connect the dots there, but I pray you will.
Yeah, don't smoke. So today was not about finances. Sorry.
Hey, but can people still go to CFRNgold.com? That's one word, folks. CFRNgold.com. Can people still go there, even though we didn't talk about gold today?
They actually can. Even though we talked about history, if they go to CFRN Gold, they'll see a beautiful page there with some beautiful gold on it. And as President Trump would describe it, a huge, beautiful form they can fill out. It's fantastic. It's
There's never actually been
stupendous.
A page quite like that before.
Never in the history of the world. It is.
How that guy can talk in endless superlatives from the time he wakes up until he goes to bed. It's incredible. It boggles my mind. I love listening to him because I kind of wish I could do that. But anyway.
Well, some people know a whole lot of jokes and stuff like that. This guy knows more superlatives than anybody else in the world.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of that.
Hands down. Great show today. Thank you so much for sharing this history with us. Something that every American should take to heart. What Americans and other Allied forces did on D-Day to secure the freedom of the world. And the people who simply set out to, protest the treatment by their government, not violently, but with a hunger strike, were shot and ran over with tanks. And no apology ever made.
Unbelievable, but it's true.
I'm going to send you on your way with this. Alexa, play Saving Private Ryan.
To watch Saving Private Ryan, see your purchase options on the Amazon website.
No, Alexa, I already have. Oh my goodness. This is embarrassing me here. Oh, I went in on the...
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
I know. You're very nice. Hang on one second. One second. My Alexa has messed up on me. I just wanted to prove a point. As I do.
So it actually plays movies and stuff too on your computer?
Yeah, because mine, I have the Alexa Show, which is the one Alexa device that has a screen incorporated into it. So yeah, I can sit here. I'm just logged in on the wrong account. Because I'm a Prime customer, I could, in fact, sit here and watch the whole movie for free.
That's funny.
It's pretty cool.
It is.
Boys and their toys.
Well, it's great to talk to you, Dwayne.
Hey, I had a great time today. I enjoyed it very much, and I'll see you tonight.
Okay.
Is that right?
God bless everyone on the line.
All right, see you there. All right, folks. That was Dr. Tom. Go to CFRNgold.com, and you'll know what we normally talk about on Thursdays. But today we talked about something a little different, important for very different reasons. It is now time. Oh, up on the screen, last night we had a Logic 247 alert. Consider being long 2832 up to 2837, 5 points. Did it once. Almost did it twice, did it 3 times, and now the 4th time. If you never take anything else away from this radio program and all that we teach at CFRN, remember this: important prices and important areas are almost always tested. You could have traded this once, twice, thrice, 4 times. Just saying. And where did the market find support when it came back down through the trigger? Weekly trading zone. Duh. No, just kidding. All right, it's time for the good word for the day. And as I said earlier, I'm a sick puppy, and I need to go lay in my bed. I'm going to do that right after this message from our sponsor, God. Different ways to pray. Deuteronomy 9:25. I lay prostrate before the Lord. Okay, I'm just going to let that rest. Find a prayer style that works for you. That's what we're talking about. Different ways to pray. In Scripture, people pray as they stand, kneel, lie on the ground, sit, stretch out their hands, lift their faces towards the sky, or bow them towards the earth. Just find the method that works best for you and use it. And let me mute Dr. Tom's mic. Is that him? Hey, Dr. Tom, if you're still there, hang up, brother. Not sure where that noise is coming from, but that's okay. We're going to carry on. Stand, kneel, lie on the ground, sit, stretch out your hands, lift your face toward the sky, or bow towards the earth. Just find the method that works best for you and use it. Some people pray better when they are moving. If you're one of them, take a walk, go for a drive, run up the beach. You are free to use your body and posture to help you turn your mind and heart towards God. Because see, that's the real focus of prayer. When you're acknowledging your sins, you may find it helpful to have your head bowed and to kneel. It'll help you to remember and experience the humility of the moment. In worship, you may want to turn your face towards the sky. In asking for guidance, you may find it helpful to turn your palms upwards as a way of expressing with your body, Lord, whatever you want. When praying for someone, say at a restaurant, you may want to look that person right in the eye while talking to God. That'll freak them out. And say, Father, I'm so grateful for this person. You know what they need. Give them what is required by their heart. Maybe if you're praising God, you want to put on a worship CD and sing along or, move your lips. The point is, you should approach God with the joy, excitement, and simplicity with which a child runs into the arms of a loving parent. Just as you don't have anyone else's fingerprints, you don't have anyone else's temperament. So just approach God in a way that's natural, spontaneous, and comfortable for you. That's our good word for the day. I'll see you tonight in the workshop. Partners and passport holders, if you're on a trial, you want to be a partner or a passport holder, get a hold of Valerie, get a hold of Michael, 949-42-EMINI, or send an email, support@cfrn.net. In the subject line, just put, let me in. All right? Thanks for tuning in today. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you where, when, at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading Emini Futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.
Damn, Sam. You messed up.